to hear. It's like 20, probably put a timestamp on it, and 5 minute 30 in as well as 25 minutes in. But yes, you can. You're capable. You can do more. You should be more confident in yourself. You know, you don't need to cry for me. You don't need to feel bad. It was this, you know, whether you're the quiet girl being bullied by a group of dumbass queen bee mean girls trying to, you know, go all Gucci bags and make fun of you because you're just not attractive or some shit like that, or you're the boy who had a stepfather beat the fuck out of you. And you know, I have a friend who's kind of like that, who, if you're even, you know, a married couple, you know, going almost like late middle aged, and you've been subject to a lot of stupid family drama just because you don't have kids, because you decide to make the mature decision thinking that back then together you and your husband or you and your wife knew and understood you don't have the resources or the capacity to raise a child, a son or daughter, and you decided against it because you thought it was the most responsible thing, that if you can't give your son or daughter a proper life, then you won't do it until you're ready. And maybe you were ostracized or ridiculed or humiliated or laughed at and mocked because of that from even your own blood and family members, quote unquote blood and family, not necessarily the same. I say this all the time. But yeah, you know, whether or not you're the homeless guy, and it's not just the homeless. Sometimes, yeah, there's some really kind, loving homeless people on the street, you know. There are some awful ones too. But let's not get this twisted, because there are rich people, wealthy people who are also really great. Not all of them are snobs and arrogant, kicking, like to spit on others. There are a lot of really great, fewer because they have a lot of power. It's easier to corrupt, but it's worth mentioning that there's a lot of great, hardworking people. In fact, my biological paternal grandfather was, he was such. He was in Vietnam, Saigon. You know, he grew up having nothing. He was in tatters, selling fabric on the streets, you know. This is obviously, we're talking way back to like 1920s and stuff like that, right? And him and his brother had nothing, you know. He was one of those pushing, you push those like a horse carriage stalls around kind of thing, but yet he didn't have a horse, obviously. And he eventually grew it until he had assets, and then he met a significant other, which would be, of course, my biological grandmother. And, you know, they built a business, they turned it into a factory, they hired staff, they grew, and then by the end of it, he became a philanthropist, and he gave back. He built an entire hospital with the money that he had to give back to the community. Because that's what, you know, that's just the kind of man that he was. And so I want to say for sure, there are some lovely, wealthy people too. They're not all, you know, people who want to be emotional parasites and just find amusement in kicking other people down. There are a lot of really wealthy people who are really great too. Just like in any creed, just like in any race I've had. Like I said, I've had, you know, people of every single race, every single country treat me poorly, and others treat me really well. Others be really sadistic and find amusement, and others just are lovable, warm, caring human beings. But usually the latter is the one that needs this kind of talk, and some of them don't learn it early enough. But eventually, I do believe, here's another reason why I didn't want to say too much, is because I want to have faith. I want to trust and believe in the capacity of people to figure things out on their own and come to terms and experience the trials and tribulations of life, and be capable of, they are capable of overcoming. And I guess this is going to be a message we'll get to soon. I should get to sooner than later. But you know, like I said, that's why I don't like to be outspoken unless, yeah, that's the right word. I don't want to be outspoken unless absolutely necessary. But there are people who need to hear that message, and there were more of them back then. I think most people now have. Not only is there less selective pressure, very intensely negative selective pressure, most of it's gone now. Not gone, it's just hidden. It's not outward in the public, on a transit, you know, in the store, in business, at work. Now it's hidden. People are putting on a mask now. People who are really awful are now recognizing that they're no longer allowed to be this way without repercussions, at least socially. Okay. But that doesn't mean it's still not there. Thankfully, by this point, most people, I believe, that go out there know what it's like now, right? They know what's the people who needed to strengthen themselves, to make themselves less vulnerable, know what it's like, how to operate and manage themselves when surrounded by people they don't know who may or may not be really, really awful. And I just want to say that if, by any chance, there's still someone out there, okay, who doesn't have that kind of self-esteem or composure or, yada yada yada, whatever the mindset or the experience to beat back against, and then I want to tell you that you can and you will. But of course, I don't really know anyone, and I prefer to speak for myself. But here's the kind of message I give, because there was one point in time, right? I think for most of us, well, in this case for me, I'm going to speak personally, where I wasn't as capable, and this was a long time ago. And I never really had a choice, right? Because in the household I was in, it was always, imagine having been put into this world by people who, instead of, the standard, people who are supposed to love you, demonstrate that, they would rather you not have been brought forth into this world, They would rather you just be dead, and demonstrate hatred instead of love, demonstrate ostracization instead of inclusion, try to demonstrate, bitterness and resentment, and pettiness, instead of warmth and comfort and care. So I guess I should tell you, right? I don't think that this is the first time you'll have be receiving this message, but if by some chance there's still someone out there who, still hasn't overcome or found the answers, or you're struggling, or sometimes you just struggle to remind yourself of what you need to hear, and I want to tell you that yes, you can. You are capable. You're smart, you're intelligent, and more importantly, that you're genuinely caring. You're one of the few who happen to have just a really good heart, and you're the consistent ones, because there's a lot of people who, when they are born in poverty or whatever, they will switch up. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you're necessarily by default a better person. Just like if you're rich, it doesn't mean you're necessarily a horrible person, right? There's a greater chance of it because, trust fund babies and spoiled silver spoons and all that shit, like hip-hop talk. And then there's also, of course, when you know the struggle, of course, it's easier for you to understand the plight of others. But that's not necessarily true, because a lot of people get led astray to start doing, all sorts of horrific things that come at the expense of others. Dog-eat-dog world down in the ghetto slums. Sometimes people turn to drugs and alcoholics and stuff like that, and, they don't do the most favorable things, I'm not here to judge. No, I don't get to do that. I'm just doing this because there's some people who need to get the right message, and I think it would benefit them, and also because I've been pushed to do this. I didn't want to speak up. I just have to now, because society's gone so bad that there's no point in me holding back anymore. I'm just gonna say what needs to be said, because it's that atrocious that now I'm warranted to speak up. So for the few of you out there who maybe still haven't learned, I hope you have the confidence and you find the self-esteem, because if this is the first time anyone's telling you that you are capable, that you're better than what someone has told you're worth, then they need to fuck themselves, okay? Because I'm not trying to tell you that you're, rainbows and sunshine and ponytails and lollipops and that you can do anything and everything in the world, because that's a lie. That's that whole, SJW victim mentality shit, all that, thinking that you can do everything in the whole world, that you could, you're some gifted kid and that you're entitled to achieve success. No, of course that's not my message. My message is simply that if you're in a situation where, like I said, you're that quiet girl that gets harassed by other girls and God forbid that sass and, trying to exclude you from everything and trying to make you as little of a person as they want you to be so that they can control you and get amusement out of you, or you're that kid in the class who, had like some really abusive parents, or you're an adult and you're being harassed at work, or you're in a really toxic relationship and your partner is not much of a partner, or maybe you're just a family drama and you have a really loving wife and husband, but then the others around you, your married in-laws or whatnot, treat you like shit because of like certain standards. They don't like your appearance, they don't like your wealth, they don't like the fact that you come from a different class or socioeconomic class or some bullshit like that. Okay. Some people don't like, people used to bully not just too long ago, like saying you because of sexual orientation. Right? If you were like straight, they'd be like, oh, you cis white man, or some fucking dumb shit like that. Or other people would then retaliate and then do something also really awful and be like, oh, you really, really simpish gay man. I was like, what the fuck is all this, right? Or, it could be gender wars, people hating on women hating on men, we had all that kind of bullshit too. And there was a lot of political stuff from all the countries too. So maybe mainlanders or really snobbish Hong Kongers. And again, there are some really great people from those countries as well, but it was just really a cesspool at the time. And if anyone is basically kind of trying to put you down, and you've been resilient, and this message doesn't apply to everyone, because yeah, there will be some people who are watching this and they're the fucking assholes who decide to try to kick other people down for their own amusement. Well, fuck you, all right? Up the ass, around the corner. That's how we do things in our city. Right? Growing up in the 90s, there's a lot of people like that, okay? But I'm not talking to them. I'm not talking to you assholes. I'm talking to the right people right now. People who really need to hear this message. The people who need more confidence, who need a little bit of support, who need a little bit of rapport. Not the ones who have too much rapport. Those who have too much ego have become self-conceited and arrogant and, all that shit. You need to humble yourself. You need to sit the fuck down, get off your high horse. I'm talking about the people who actually need it. Don't listen to them, okay? Don't listen to them. I'm not saying that sometimes you can't be realistic, because you can't do everything in the whole wide world, but it's not important for you to necessarily become the best at everything. I'm just saying become the best version of yourselves, and the way that they deliver the message is actually not trying to, make you realistic with the world, with what you can actually do. They're just trying to put you down and make you as small as possible so they can control you. And some of them even find that hilarious. Yeah, life is cruel. Yeah, there are people who do great things and are really, really kind, loving people, and they suffer all their lives. There are people who just never see the end of the light of the tunnel. And there are really, really awful, shitty, horrific people, and some of them will get away with everything throughout the rest of their lives. That's the cold hard truth. But I don't want to endorse any sort of defeatist, escapist mentality, some kind of like nihilism, because that doesn't prevent you. It's not an excuse. An excuse sounds dismissive. Maybe I'll use a different word, right? It's not that. The excuse is that you still have reason to do better. The fact that we don't live in a perfect world where, proper fairness and justice is served isn't a reason for you to not try and at least accomplish what you can accomplish with your own two hands, as a man, as a woman, for the ones you love, for the ones you care, for the right people here I'm talking, right? The right people who need to hear this. There are a lot of people who probably don't need to hear stuff like this. And there are furthermore people who really don't deserve to hear stuff like this. But there are some of you who really do, and you've been consistent, and you've been on the grind. And for every time you're on the grind and you're staying true to yourself as someone who is hardworking and responsible and uses comedy and humor to uplift people instead of tear people down. You don't step on other people to get ahead without at least some sort of like justified due cause or some due diligence, right? You actually have a conscience. You actually try. You try to have a heart. You try to have some humanity. Okay? And you're consistent with it. You push through despite all the numerous constant hurdles trying to encourage you to do the opposite. You beat back and fight against the grain, and you're resilient. And, you know, no pain, no gain, right? Eventually, through all these obstacles and circumstances, you become stronger and stronger and become more resilient. And eventually, just doing the better thing just becomes natural and easy. And that's kind of where I've been at for a long time anyways. I just was surprised that it wasn't like the case like this for everyone else, which speaks to a little bit of my own. I'm gonna admit, right, this is my own naivety. I didn't realize, and I should have to a degree, that, you know, just because there's like the world's in shit and flames and like pandemic and everything and war, doesn't mean that people will smarten up. In fact, some people will just become worse and use that as an excuse to become less than they are. So many couples, how many of them have picked on the kind of person I'm speaking to right now, and use, like, again, jealousy and deceit and envy and think they can project that onto you when you don't feel any of that at all. That's because that's just not who you are. But because they themselves were faking it during those like 2010s, right, where victim mentality and, you know, the crazy left nonsense was rampant, and even the far right was also rampant with like self-entitlement and stuff like that. These kind of people like to project their jealousy or anger or their sensitivities or whatever onto you, and, you know, and envy and bitterness and resentment, and you just don't feel that shit, right? You just don't, unless you really have to be provoked and pushed to the very far limits, but it's just not something that is attuned to you. And I want to let you know that you're on the right path. And of course, who the fuck am I to say something like this, because you don't know me, I don't know you, I'm just some random guy, probably, you know, 3,000 miles away in the opposite side of the earth. Facts. But it doesn't mean that I still want to say this, because I think, you know, you're great. People like you out there who have persisted, people out there who have, you know, I've seen people like this, like, again, the people who would try to block the way. Some of them were actually in tears themselves, some of them really cared, some of them really want, and I didn't want them to get involved. And I said, you know, rather, the better option is, I would prefer if you kind of focus on yourself. I can handle this. I can just kind of even be the decoy. It's not some martyrdom. It's not self-sacrificial, because I know I can take it. I can handle it. I don't care if it's Tiananmen fucking Square. It's like, you know, 6.7 million people in this city, this greater area that I'm in. But if it was like 8 billion people, and I had to stand up against it, well, why the fuck not? Because, like, I'm not gonna live my life a fucking coward and allow this shit to go, because that's not a life worth living. Not in my eyes, anyways. Like, that's not, I don't know what you see, but if I cowed and bowed my head down to that kind of, I don't know how I could live with myself like that, man. Like, I guess other people don't even give a shit, but, you know. But those of you out there who do, you know, who have been there, I want you to hear that that yes, you can. If someone's been putting you down, your ex, your husband, your wife, your whatever, your family members, or your, you know, just some bully, some asshole, you know, you're great. You can accomplish more. You can get that career. You can, you know, find the self-esteem, the confidence. You can become smarter, faster, more well-rounded. Cut off the bad fruit, the low-hanging fruit, the people who are not positive and kind of toxic and trying to drag you down, and surround yourself with people who are actually genuinely like-mindedly caring and loving and are productive and want to make society and community and as a whole and this world as a whole better in as much as possible, in as much as reasonably possible. I have to say that again, because, you know, keeping in tune with being a little bit realistic, it's not all sunshine, rainbows, ponytails, but you can do the best that you can be, and that's enough. And for those of you out there who are the ones who will go the extra mile, provide that benefit of doubt. Like I said, I like to give the benefit of doubt. I like to give good faith. I'd like to think that people are capable of making their own decisions and growing, and capable of, you know, wisening up through experience. Because, and here's the thing about wisdom, right? Wisdom is more the differentiating factor between wisdom and knowledge, of course, is, well, I guess I say of course, but it's not obvious to everyone. But basically, it's something that will reveal itself time and time again over a long period of time. No pun intended, because it's something that's more universal and less circumstantial. Although, let's be clear, even pieces of wisdom and advice you need to apply them in the right context, in the right circumstance, the right situation. There's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution or a blanket or umbrella solution. But the fact is, unlike knowledge, which is just like smarts, there's like, the standard saying is that I've met a lot of people who are smart but not wise, and wise but not that smart. And they're not mutually exclusive, but they're also not the same. So regardless of whether or not you listen or not, right? Some of these people, they will learn through time what the mistakes are, but there's also great people like you, and I wish there was a way for you to learn things without going through the hard struggles, without being harassed 24/7 and have to figure things out the hard way. Because there is a better way, and here's where I'm kind of, I apologize. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to capitalize on the platform that I had to do this, because I myself was going through so much. I was also going through a lot of self-sabotage, but also external sabotage coming from others, from bad actors onto me. And for every time I would hold some kind of self-restraint, they wouldn't hold back at all. Right? And it could be over tiny things that I don't even notice. I'm like, how can you be this like paranoid or delusional or oversensitive? I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing that's pissing you off, or making you feel like you need to be this awful, condescending, patronizing, humiliating freak of nature. But there are people like that, right? And of course, I know how to deal with that. I think that you can too. You can learn how to stand up against these people. And at this point in time, I'm fairly confident that a lot of the people who were at the time were vulnerable. You're all capable of now having the power, the money, the stature, the social network to beat back against that. Because you do have to beat them at their own game. These people here, make no mistake, some of them will change. Yes, some of them are not truly awful, but there's quite a few of them actually who thrive in the power and conceit, and they will not stop. They will simply just hide it when it's convenient, and then they will show it when there are no consequences. So there are a lot of them who are just wearing masks now, because it's no longer socially acceptable to be a fucking asshole to random strangers, but they're still there. And some of them still do it in the public, and they don't give a shit, right? But you can do better. And if they have told you this wrong messaging throughout your entire life, maybe your entire life in the household or at work or at school or whatever or not, you've been told that you should be less than what you are, that you'll never amount to anything. They kind of scorn you in front of, it's like they just like burst out in amusement, laughing their asses off at how much they feel they are better than you. You're already better than them in my eyes, just for having a heart, for not succumbing to their standards, for having the resilience and the perseverance. But you can improve on that further, and I want you to know that yes, you can. And if you haven't already found that within you, and again, I think most people have, but on the off chance that there's one person out there, and even just one person, one or two, but if it's just one person who gets this message, it'd be all worthwhile. You can save this message, you can clip it, you can record it, and you should just stop this message right now. Stop this video, this recording, this podcast, this media file, and just repeat it after me. Like, just say that I'm worthwhile, that I can be loved, that I am capable, and yes, you are. All right, you're not God, you're not some, don't go off the rails, but you know what I'm trying to say. You're the kind of person who needs to hear that, and because you're probably the person who has more self-control and self-restraint. You might be the person who, once when granted power, has the capacity to regulate oneself and to manage that, even though it's very easy to corrupt people and tempt people in high positions of power. You might be the kind of person, given what you've been through and the consistency through which you've shown your resilience and character and integrity, you're the kind of person who actually is worth leadership. You're the kind of person who's worth being a leader one day. And I want to kind of cultivate that, let you know that you are capable of doing that. And if it first starts off, if I'm the first person, I hope it's not, I don't believe it is. At this point, I'm sure that you have some close friends or acquaintances even, but like probably a partner, a spouse, husband or wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or maybe you're married, you have adult children, your kids or your grandkids, or other forms of family, maybe a tutor, a coach, a mentor, a sifu, someone out there who can actually direct you in the right path and say that you're capable, you have so much potential. You do. And I believe that. And I wanna think that you can. Okay. But it's not just a want, right? Because there are so many people out there who are downtrodden because the people around them and the environment they're surrounded with is so poisonous and so debilitating and so discouraging, filled with open acts of like people using emotion to manipulate and take advantage of, using fear, guilt, shame, and anger and rage in all the wrong ways. Because believe me, there is a purpose for shame. You should feel ashamed if you do something awful. Those people don't, but you do, and you probably feel shame too much. Some people should feel guilty, and there are certain acts that should beget guilt, should beget fear. There are certain things that you should be afraid of. There are certain things that you should, but for each and every single one of these, there's a specific circumstance where it's appropriate, and there are many circumstances where they are not, where you shouldn't be afraid, where you shouldn't feel. In fact, you should feel the opposite, where you should feel, instead of fear, you should be overcoming it with courage and be triumphant over your fears. If someone's harassing you and like that, you can have the resilience, you can have the courage to overcome that. You don't even have to feel anything. I can tell you that for a fact. I don't even understand what this fear stuff is, because this is something that I had to overcome at a very early stage in life. And that begets, for a lot of people, because they feel the fear of social exclusion, they actually turn to things like jealousy and envy as an answer to their problems, when it's not. It just makes them less than who they are. Right? I've had so many examples of, especially young couples, but even old couples, even family members group and band together like this fucking mob, thinking that, like cowards that they are, 10 people picking on one person behind their back, never including them directly face to face in a conversation, right? Think that makes them better than you in some way, or that makes you less than what they are, which is not the truth, obviously. You can be better, you are stronger, and if you have to stop and record this and clip this and then just repeat after that, just say that you are better. Because behavior becomes thought, thought becomes action, action becomes behavior, behavior becomes you. Eventually, maybe it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but maybe a week down the road after doing this, you just save it, record it, and then make yourself do this. You wake up in the morning, you get up on your feet, you go to the goddamn washroom, you look in the mirror and you tell yourself this. You repeat it 3 times. And maybe you don't believe in it yet, but at least you were able to muster it because you couldn't say that before. And then 2 days down the road, you say it this time with conviction, because you actually are able to somewhat be convinced by that. And then a week down the road, you're not just convinced, you actually believe. And then a month later, you actually know yourself to be, and you no longer need to, again, this is some stranger, half a million miles away, that song. And you don't need me to tell you this, and I don't want to have to tell you this, because here's the thing, right? Not only are you capable, but that's what I know what it's like, obviously, to, I don't want you to be dependent on me. This is about parenting now, going to be a little bit, but when I raised, he wasn't my biological son, but all the more the merrier, whatever, it doesn't matter anyway, because my point is that it wasn't a permissive parenting style, nor was it an authoritarian parenting style. I didn't scream or shout and kick or beat or trying to put him down every time he didn't do something I didn't like or anything like that. Nor did I, be like a total doorman, just let him do whatever the fuck he wants and say, if he does something horrible, I'm just gonna be like, oh, it's okay, I still love you, you're doing a great job. No, I would be civil with him. I had a down-to-earth, I think it's called authoritative versus authoritarian approach, where I'm trying to just basically encourage him to make his own decisions, and I will give him my honest opinions about what he's done wrong, if he has done it. And I'm going to have a laissez-faire approach too, though, and say that, I respect you enough eventually down the road, because kids are smart. They are. Children are really smart. Okay? They're like a blank slate, tabula rasa, René Descartes. And they can learn so much really quickly and adapt really quickly. But sometimes get led astray. Some of them are naive. Some of them get misguided because they join the wrong peer circles, the wrong friend groups, and then they get led astray. Adults do this all the time. Seniors and old grannies and grandpas do the same shit. You would be surprised. I volunteer in a seniors home, and you would be surprised at the kind of like child, like recess, like type behavior, harassment, bullying that would happen, exclusion that would happen in people who were like basically 70 and 80 years old. Right? This is just like human behavior once again. But getting back to the point, I don't ever want you to be dependent on me, because you don't need to be, and I don't want you to be. And if somebody tries to make you dependent on them, but you don't need my recording, you don't even need me to talk to you. I don't. Maybe in the moment you do, right? But you won't need that, and that's the best feeling in the world, because at some point I say, when you can make your own decisions, you're gonna make your own mistakes. And when you do, you're also going to learn from other people, because I'm fallible. I'm not perfect. No one is. No parent is perfect, okay? No coach, no mentor is perfect. I'm going to have my own mistakes, my own shortcomings, and in fact, I'd rather you also learn more from your peers as well. And you're going to make mistakes, and I'm going to let you make some of those mistakes, unless they're so atrocious that they're irreversible and they're going to basically ruin your health and stuff like that, right? But, because I trust you to eventually develop the maturity through experience, and I'll play more like a guiding role. I'll listen to you. I'll hear you out, right? When you're down, I'll lend you a hand. But I'm not going to control you. I don't own you. You're not my possession. You don't owe me anything. You don't even owe me your attention or your love. You're your own independent person. And one day you're going to be a man. You're going to stand on your own 2 feet, and that's going to be the happiest moment of my life. When you're no longer part of my life, right? Not, I don't mean that way, but when you're capable of standing, the wings spread and fly off, you're capable of doing that on your own. You don't need me. And because this is the exact opposite of what a narcissist would do. And I know what that's like, all right? For those of you who have been beat down, who've been ostracized, excluded, whether it's like female, like woman, the way women treat each other, like sometimes female bullying, but also like little boys bullying each other, all that bullshit, fucking nonsense, right? Passive aggressive, direct hostile aggression, all that shit, physical, verbal, whatever it is, just to make themselves feel better, make you inferior so that they can make themselves boost their own ego and feel superior about themselves, which is superficial and fake, because that's not really how the situation is. They just want to make themselves feel better. They're in their feelings, and they're using you like a tool, hammer to a wrench, okay, nail on the wooden stud. But you don't have to be a casualty. You don't have to be a casualty, no, okay? Because you're better than that. And they're trying to make you less than what you are, so that, it's for shits and giggles. But you can do that on your own. You don't need me to tell you this, and you can practice that, Somewhere down the road, if like a month passes by, you won't need this. Not only will you know so and believe so, you won't need this recording, but you can tell yourself so. And then on top of that, if a month passes by, you start to, hopefully have the confidence to seek out the right people and also remove the wrong kind of people from your life. And then down the road, the hope, the intention is that eventually you'll have family, loved ones, friends, colleagues who are the right kind of people in your life, who can support you. And because you are, like I said, we're all imperfect. We're not angels, we're not saints, we're not God, we're not omnipotent, We're not deities. Sometimes you will, be fallible, and your confidence will waver. You'll get thrown so many curveballs by life that you're gonna break down a little bit, and you're gonna question yourself, you're gonna doubt, and then you're gonna start to get a little bit defeated. By that point in time, not only are so far beyond that point, you'll have your own circle of friends, and they will remind you that you are good, you're great, you're capable, you're strong, and you can surpass all of these obstacles and hurdles. Again, without excessive arrogance, without excessive confidence that turns into cockiness and braggadociousness and self-entitlement. Just enough to be confident and firm and assertive, without too much pride or vanity or ego. To be self-confident, assured in yourself, and secure, as opposed to being insecure and having to create a fake image by taking other people down to your own level. Okay? Like true confidence. I'm not talking about the fake facade, the fake shit. Okay? Real shit. Okay? We ain't talking. We ain't deal with that stainless silver spoon ass motherfucking bullshit. Okay? Not those trust fund babies. Not that kind of stuff. We're talking about real confidence. Okay? Yes, you can. You can. And I don't know who told you otherwise, but they're full of shit. And you need to know that. You can. So start there. Tell yourself this. Stop this video. Do it. Tell yourself this. Record it, clip it, save it. I don't know what you need to do. Maybe wake up tomorrow morning and then you'll repeat that. And then repeat that again the next day. And then the next week until you know it. You know so. Okay? Because they've been brainwashing you. And like I said, I know what that's like to be under the grasp and control of a narcissist. This is the same reason why that I didn't, a lot of people have actually been kind of disillusioned with me. I've even delivered messaging that was, kind of contrary to what they wanted to hear. And at times, if you couldn't tell a couple weeks ago, but even a couple days ago, the messaging was kind of negative because I wasn't able to articulate. But at some point, when it first began, I already made the decision not to articulate myself too frequently, not to be outspoken or loud too frequently, just sporadically when necessary, because when it was going to be effective. And that's because, again, playing on the same theme, I don't want you to be dependent on me. I don't want other people to be codependent on me. It never works over the long term. A healthy relationship doesn't need two people to hold on to each other like crutches, because life is so turbulent and so filled with so much turmoil and wrath and unpredictability and unfairness and cruelty and tragedy that there will always be a time that you're going to be separated from a loved one, from someone you need to depend on. So it's never healthy to actually need someone to be there for you all the time. You need to be there for yourself. That's it. Again, you need to be there for yourself. You can't help others if you can't be there, if you can't even help yourself. And other people can't help you if you can't even start to help yourself either. That's just taking, again, internal, personal responsibility, holding yourself accountable. But on top of that, some people really need to hear this because they've been brainwashed, right? They've been under the control and grasp of some control freak, some petty person who thinks that, they're doing you a favor. I know what that's like, right? In the household with these two freaks who seem to think that, they think they have the best intentions, and you're like, by beating you and screaming at you and holding you by the neck and never smiling, just always scorning you, showing you hatred. They're like, they think this tough love approach, that they're gonna make you perfect. It's for your own good. They're in the right. They're doing you a favor. They're not. They are not. And if they have if they have even a glimmer of the right intentions, then at least we can say that their delivery and the way they're delivering the message is all wrong. Most of it, however, is actually false messaging. They're just saying that part of that is because they have the wrong delivery message system. They're communicating themselves in the wrong way, but that actually works against the message, works against the results that they're trying to attain from you. And And sometimes those messages aren't even right at all, because they're treating you like a trophy. You represent something to them. You're a possession, right? That's what they see you as, and they're not able to realize and become self-aware of it until it's too late. Like, you don't have to be dependent on that, and you can get to a point where you can do better, where you can surround yourself with people who also are self-dependent, not egotistical, not shallow or superficial, not those who are using fake confidence or fake facade. People who are real to the bone, have real self-esteem, real courage, right? They don't overcome fear by actually making everyone else around them fear them. They actually just have courage to beat back people who are really hostile, right? So they overcome the fear genuinely with the right solutions, and they don't, at some point, they just don't feel it anymore. And I am speaking personally, of course, but there are people like this, okay? And you can surround it. You can get to that point too. Not everyone can. Again, I'm not going to give you some fake, pretentious thing like, the world's, everybody can accomplish everything. But at the very least, like I said, you can do much better. My point is, you can do much better than what they're telling you. They're leading you on, and they don't have they don't have your best interests in mind. They just want to use you for their own self-satisfaction and ego. But you can do better. I don't think there's a whole lot of people who need to hear this anymore, to be honest. I think most people have kind of wisened up. Maybe sometimes people need a reminder. But if there's, again, just one person out there who for some reason hasn't received it yet, and they really need to hear this, then that's good enough for me. I think that's where I'm going to try to leave it off, because I do have a lot of stuff I need to get to. But again, I'm sorry. I wish I would have said this 3 years ago, when a lot of people really need to hear this, a lot of the right people need to hear this. But I just was not in the right place. I apologize. But you can do better. And again, the whole point of this, whole time for me being silent as much as possible, or not being too outspoken, is because I really wanted to put my faith and trust in, and really believe at the beginning, right before I got so tired and like annoyed. The original intention was that, and still to this day, because I tell oftentimes, I don't say, people know, I think, at this point, before they didn't know. But I don't really say oftentimes. I would say maybe a lot of times I say things that I don't fully commit or believe in necessarily, but it's not out of manipulation. There are people who do that to manipulate. I'm doing that to guide. And the difference between guidance and manipulation obviously is in the affinity of the consequences. What do you intend? Do you intend for a positive and productive well-being? Are you trying to make them better? Or are you trying to tear them apart at your own self-expense? Is it negative? Is it negative or is it positive? Are you being helpful? Or are you being Are you trying to detract from them? Right? Obviously, you can tell. My point is, I'm the devil's advocate. I will tell people things that they need to hear to get some sort of self-awareness. Usually, once again, saying something is not usually a reflection of others more in as much as it is of yourself. And for me, being aware of this, sometimes I use that in reverse, because playing the devil's advocate, I sometimes say things to make people become aware of either what they're doing wrong, right? Either become what they do and show them, because some people just lack so much self-awareness that no matter what you say to them, they won't realize it until you show them by becoming just as obnoxious and arrogant as them, and they realize, but then they think that you're doing it because you're out of hypocrisy. You think, oh, see, look, you're so, you're awful too. No, I'm just doing this to show you what you look like, how you are, how you behave, how much of a fool you are, how awful you are. You're treating your friends and random strangers on your everyday basis, just so you know. But some of them will never realize that, and that's not important, because the most important thing, again, I don't care about appearance or status. I could look like a fucking deadbeat. At the end of the day, appearance for me and status is just a tool. it's not important. What's important for me are far more important things like your loved ones and your purpose and your character and your integrity. Who the fuck cares about whether or not you have a Gucci bag, whether or not I have like clean skin, like bright skin. Clean skin is healthy skin, which is important. Health is important, but appearance is it matters, but it's really pretty low on the rung of priorities. Okay? It's not totally unimportant. So I would say like 80-20 Pareto, right? 80% of the time I just say things that people need to hear. And in this case, you know, yeah, sometimes I'm the devil's advocate and tell the people who need to change because they're awful. I tell them, I show them what they're like. And they still never realize, which is why I left the workplace in the previous one, where there's like 23 colleagues and a lot of them just didn't have a capacity to become self-aware. Even when I showed them what they were like, they thought I just changed. But actually a lot of it was because I was just trying to show them what they're like, and they hated it. I said, I told you you wouldn't like it. If I became like you wouldn't like it. If you saw yourself in the mirror, you wouldn't like it. But they never came to the realization. So I just left. But then I also, you know, and so in the same notion, by the same token, I tell people like you, the few good people out there, I tell you what you need to hear. And in this case, it's not the devil's advocate. I want you to become the best version of yourself. I'm telling you the things that I wish that will hopefully dispel all the brainwashing and the kind of like slander and propaganda on a personal relationship level that they've used to try to take you down to their level so that they could make themselves feel better about themselves. You're more than that. People like you are, you know, the kind of people we need in society. And I hope you know that and you can work on yourself. And I don't think there's a lot of people who need to hear this anymore because, you know, I presume that things are, you know, but if there's even just one person out there who needs to hear it, hopefully they find this message. Okay, work on yourself. You are capable. You can do better. Now I need to get to my shit. So, Happy New Year. All the best to you and the New Year resolutions. Okay? And just, you know, do your best. Do your best. Sometimes that's all you need to do. But your best clearly isn't what they're telling you it is. You can figure that out on your own. Sometimes you just need a little push, and I can sort of push you there, maybe. And then you can eventually start pushing yourself, and eventually you'll accomplish things you could never imagine. You'll find yourself in the right circles with people you never thought you would ever be surrounded by, and life will be good.